Untangle this. What? How do you play? 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 What if I did like a, what if there was like a, what if I did like a, just, hold on. Wait, I got this, hold on. Be right there. Oh, hi. Are we rolling? Are we, D&D, are we in it? All right, well, hi, my name is Johnny Song. Welcome to D&D with Song. Today we're talking about how to play. Let's get right into the D&D. How does one play Dungeons and Dragons? The books break it down super easy, and so I'm gonna kind of follow their format or take pointers from them because they wrote the game. You need other players, right? And so get a group of friends, usually maybe a group of 5-ish friends. 4 is fine, 3 is fine. 2 can get a little janky for your first time if you're not practiced. Let's assume you have 4 other friends who want to do this, or you force them into it, which is totally fine. One of you 5 is going to take the role of what's called the DM, the Dungeon Master, and they kind of act like a referee between the rest of the players and the rules, and they kind of judge like what is acceptable, what is doable, all that good stuff. The Dungeon Master is just another player, and you should treat them like that. They are the referee, which means that they know the rules and will make judgments, and you trust them to make those judgments wisely, but they want to have fun too. They're here to have fun, and you guys get to work together to create a beautiful, wonderful, crazy, awesome story. The order of operations when you play the game, the DM will describe the environment that your character, your person, your adventurer is in. Second, the players will kind of describe what they want to do with the environment, if they want to interact with it, if they want to observe it, if they want to investigate it, that kind of thing. And then lastly, the DM will narrate what happens. Now, what the players do can be governed by, as I said in the first video, dice rolls. There's dice, and the one that governs kind of everything, the backbone of this game, is a 20-sided die. Usually you see the 6-sided dice, right? Like you're playing Risk and you gotta do the defense and attack, or you're playing Yahtzee. This little thing governs existence in this game. And so you roll a 20-sided die, and the DM will describe what happens as a result. Characters will have benefits that add to that number that you rolled, or subtract from it in certain cases. If they're proficient or able to do a thing, they'll get a higher number. If they're not, you might have to lower that number. It just happens that way. So there are many dice in this world, and they become a kind of collector's item for a lot of players. And for instance, here's some nice pastel dice I have to show you. There are 7 dice types that you will use. You will use a 4-sided die. You've got your typical D6, which is a 6-sided die, 8-sided die, which is a D8. And you notice I will say D8 or D6 or D4. That's kind of the shorthand that comes with these dice. D10, which kind of looks like a top. You have a D12, and then you've got your 20-sided dice. And I know I said 7, but hold on a sec. So the 20-sided die is the most kind of circular one. You don't have a 100-sided die. That would be a big die, almost like a golf ball. I've seen them, they do exist. I don't recommend them. What you do have instead is the D10, and then you have a tens place D10. So you can roll up to 100, essentially, by combining these 2 tens place dice. D12s are used for damage and HP, D6 is used for damage and HP, D4s are usually used for damage, D20 is used for 3 types of rolls: saving throws, ability checks, attack rolls. Saving throws are your defense against someone else's attack, ability checks are a measure of your aptitude and a skill, and attack rolls are exactly what they sound like, you attacking another player. When you roll any of these 3 things, there's a static number that the DM knows that you have to beat. Now let's talk about advantage and disadvantage. Really simple concept. When you have advantage, you roll a 20-sided die twice and take the higher of the two values. If you roll a 3 and then you roll a 15, you take the 15. If you roll a 17 and then a 2, you take the 17. When you have disadvantage, the opposite happens. You roll twice and take the lower of the two results. So if you roll like a 14 and a 7, you would take the 7 instead. In terms of rules, specific rules beat out general rules. Like if generally like you're not allowed to do magic to do this thing, and then a spell says this spell is made to do this thing, you follow the spell, not the general rule. You round down always. Even if it's like 1.99999, you wouldn't round up to 2, you would round down to 1. If you want guidance on how to play well, I implore you to use your imagination to not just envision the scenario and what your character would do, but to give in to that character's weaknesses. Think of something inventive and totally out of left field that totally makes sense for your character and that kind of stuff. Because I feel like, you know, rolling dice and saying you succeed, you don't succeed is great, but doesn't get it across necessarily. You know, if you just say, I look at the rocks to see if there's anything crazy, that's good. But you can also describe it better and imagine it better by being like, my guy has seen his fair share of wall buttons, but he doesn't think there's a wall button here. There's probably a pressure plate in the floor, so he's gonna look on the floor. When you play, there are kind of 3 pillars of play. They can interweave with one another, but like there's 3 main components. There is exploration, there's social interaction, where you interact with what's called non-player characters, NPCs, and they interact back with you, and they are played by your DM. How well they do so can lend itself to the experience, can make it a better experience in general. The last thing is combat, and this is kind of almost a separate part. There's a lot of combat that is very separate from how normal interactions take place. There's a turn order. Certain actions cost amounts of time that you're allocated in combat. And we'll go over how you can do each of these 3 things, these 3 pillars, in tandem with one another and separately, and what they will take from you. Combat is probably the most technically heavy part of it, whereas roleplay kind of feels like social interaction feels like just talking to somebody. Combat, you kind of have to think a little bit more. 3 pillars: exploration, social interaction, combat. I think the final thing that we'll talk about in this episode is that in Dungeons and Dragons, there is magic. Magic is real. You can inflict your will on the universe by wanting it bad enough and knowing the hand and vocal signs to initiate magic. There are so many jobs that incorporate it. There are so many people that are able to use it and tons of people who aren't. Some people are born non-magical and they don't have the ability to acquire magic. That's just part of the world. I will say that your dungeon master can tweak that, can build your world to be more magical or not magical at all. He can make magic rare or he can make it very common. It's his choice about what he thinks you will enjoy. And I would talk to him or her or them about that because it's very important to have that communication. So that's how to play. Find people, build a person, and we'll get into the technical side of that in future episodes. But in general, it's just fun. So this would not be possible without my wonderful, generous, kind-hearted, amazing patrons. And if you look right here, you will see a list of their names because they are just fantastic. Look at those names. That is so pretty. Okay, so special thank you to Persephone and Patrick. They are one of, both staunch supporters of me, and I would not be able to do what I do without them. And I appreciate all of you guys so much. If you feel like throwing me a buck or something, you can head to the Patreon link. If not, keep enjoying D&D. And I hope this video helps. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. My name is Johnny Song.